The purpose of having worship in this room today is both to give you a chance to be in this space, to own the space, to think of yourself as using this space and enjoying this space, and also to bless the room, to understand that we're not a club and we're not a business, we're a church. And so anything we do is a ministry, and we touch it with hands that bless it. So we're in here today to bless this room, to bless the work that it's going to do for us and with us, and to continue to bless the people who have stepped forward to say, you know what, I'm gonna make that happen. And now, Lord God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen. Let go and let God. I've been hearing that phrase since back in the 1980s. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. It's not as bad as some you hear a lot these days. Nothing sets my teeth on edge like everything happens for a reason. Except maybe have a blessed day. These days, when I leave my house, my sweet husband says to me, "Hey Martha, have a day." And I say, "You too, hun, have whatever kind of day you want to have." My objection to most of these phrases is their patness, their insistence on a vague, undescribed set of circumstances. What do you mean by blessed? And what is it that I'm supposed to be letting go of? And what is God's role in this thing you're laying out? Let God do what? It rubs up against my interest in controlling everything in my life and in the lives of those around me. As I get older, though, I have more tolerance for let go, let God, although I still cannot abide have a blessed day. I'm beginning to see more clearly what I should let go of and what it is exactly that it might mean to let God do what God does. In your history as a people of faith, you may or may not have heard of the cycle of Judges. I had never heard of it until I went to seminary. The book of Judges is the second book in the Old Testament after the 5 books of law. It tells the stories of the time in the history of the Jewish people after the escape from Egypt, but before the reign of kings. Joshua, the leader of the Israelites after Moses, has gotten the people into the land of Canaan. Unfortunately for them, there are people already living there who aren't aware that their land has been given to someone else. Imagine standing on a hill and God says to you, "All the land that you see is yours." And you say, "There's a guy living over there, and he doesn't think that's true." You see a well-established city with a wall and hundreds, if not thousands of people living inside. In addition to the Canaanites, there are Ammonites, Amalekites, and Philistines, and assorted other people groups, all of whom have better armies than the people of Israel, who don't have an army at all, and all of whom worship multiple problematic gods. And here is how things go in the book of Judges. 1. God rescues the people from whatever mess they've gotten themselves into. God provides a leader. 2, the people ignore the leader and go back to their problematic behaviors. 3, things go poorly for them. 4, the people repent and come back to God. 5, see number 1. Over and over and over again in this book, these lines are repeated. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. But when they cried out to the Lord, God raised up for them a deliverer. And so the book of Judges is a series of hero stories, much like the tales of Hercules and Achilles. And we know how heroes work, right? When you begin a hero story, everyone around you kind of settles in because they know the hero will be amazing. He, and it is always he, will be strong and bold and adventurous. He will have won many battles in his lifetime, beginning with extraordinary acts of strength and courage when he was still very young. He's likely to have a tragic flaw, but even in that, he will give his people victory. So we start reading the book of Judges with great anticipation. We get our popcorn and we settle in, ready for tales of great action. And we are rewarded with Ehud, the left-handed. In Ehud's story, God raises up Ehud, whose only attribute is he is left-handed. According to some scholars, the left-handed warrior is something like being a left-handed pitcher. It throws all those righties off. And also the Bible attributes left-handedness to many of the tribe of Benjamin, of which Ehud is one. The name Benjamin means son of my right hand, so obviously they are all left-handed in the logic of the people of Israel. The key here is that it is unexpected. Heroes aren't left-handed. They come at you straight like John Wayne. In Ehud's story, the people have been having trouble with a Moabite king named Eglon, who has partnered with the Ammonites and the Amalekites to keep the Israelites under his heel for 18 years. There are two numbers in the book of Judges. They are 18 and 40. 18 years, they are under somebody's thumb. They get their act together. They fight them off. They're good for 40 years. And then they screw it up again, and 18 years of oppression comes back, right? Turns out that Ehud has this double-edged sword that he straps to his right thigh. We also hear that Eglon is a hugely fat king who presides over his kingdom from the comfort of his throne. So Ehud gets these instructions from God, and he goes to meet with Eglon. And then he turns into the trickster, and he says to Eglon, hey, I've got a message for you from God, but I can't say it in front of everybody. And Eglon falls for it, hook, line, and sinker. He's like, well, message from God. You guys leave. Everybody go. Guards, you go. It'll be fine. It's just a left-handed guy. And so Ehud says, well, listen, I gotta get real close. I gotta whisper it. So he eases up to Eglon. He pulls that sword out, and the story is that it goes so deep that the hilt is buried in the fat. And he kills Eglon, and he defeats their enemy, and the people are rescued and have peace for a while. And then the people will do evil in the sight of God, forgetting God and worshiping the Baals, and they get themselves in trouble again. Oh, this is going to be good. Ehud was a little weird with that left-handed thing, but this has got to be a great hero. And it's Deborah. She's a girl. Deborah, who slew the mighty beast of Bethel. Deborah, who caused fire to rain from the sky one day because she had a headache. No, none of those things. Deborah sat under a tree and dispensed wisdom from God. And when inevitably the enemies of Israel come across the plains in their iron-bound chariots to rout the Israelites once and for all, the leader of the warriors, Barak, came to Deborah and told her how bad things were going. He told her how Sisera, commander of the army of the Canaanites, was attacking at every turn, and how they could not hold Sisera's army off. Deborah tells Barak to take the Israelites up the side of Mount Tabor. There she says, God will help you defeat Sisera. But Barak is afraid. And he says, I won't go without you. And this has got to be one of the best feminist moments in the Bible, apart from the story that comes right after this one. Deborah says, okay, fine. I will come with you and I will lead the troops, and everyone will know that you were led by a girl. And so she did. The second part of this story is even juicier. Deborah and Barak and the Israelites do defeat Sisera's troops. But Sisera himself, the leader of this group, he gets away. And he runs off into the wilderness, and he comes across the tent belonging to Heber, who is not there. He's off fighting the war. But his wife, Jael, happens to be inside. And Jael says, come on in, I'll hide you. And so Sisera goes in, and he's like, look, if anybody shows up at the tent, just say no one's in here. Just so I'm going to go to sleep, and you say no one's in here. And Jael says, I got you. Then I want to show you this. This is my favorite. Look at the look on her face. She's like, he goes to sleep and she's like, She goes and gets a tent peg, pulls it up, and then she goes and gets a hammer, and then she just smooths the space on the side of his head, and BAM! She staples his head to the ground with a tent peg. And Sisera is defeated by a girl. So far, we have a left-handed guy and two girls saving the day. Our big hero stories, our Supermans, our Batmans. And then the people do evil in the eyes of God, and God pulls back God's hand of protection, and bad things happen. And the people cry out for help. They're holding out for a hero. And God gives them Gideon, the nerd. Gideon is out in his field defiantly farming the land they have stolen. No. He is literally trying to thresh wheat in a wine vat so that they will not see him. And God comes to him and says, Gideon, you're going to rescue the people of Israel. And Gideon says, probably not. And he says, have you seen me? I'm a mess. I never go to the gym. Last week I came home from the market through the desert because there's these 13-year-old girls who've been taunting me. And God says, well, that's pretty bad, but you're still my guy. God instructs Gideon to start doing what amounts to nighttime vandalism of the local pagan altars. And when that leads to hordes with pitchforks and machetes, God instructs Gideon to gather the troops and then has him whittle their numbers down to 300. Do you remember that story of the 300 at Thermopylae? Remember that story? That was a movie recently, and lots of blood spurting and big butch guys fighting, right? Well, we have our story of the 300, and it involves no guys with six-packs. It involves a bunch of horns and clay jars and a good trick that scares the army, and they do, in fact, defeat the enemies of Israel. And then the people of Israel are rescued and live in peace for a while until they begin to do evil in the eyes of God and hands them over to their enemies. This time, it's the Philistines and the Ammonites who oppressed them for 18 years. And they cried out for a hero. And God gives them Jephthah, son of a prostitute. And they cried, Jephthah, come save us. This is a guy whose brothers have thrown him out because he's illegitimate and they don't want him to get any of their inheritance. And they've thrown him out, but it turns out he's a pretty good warrior. And so when things get bad, they call Jephthah in and he says, okay, I'll do it, I'll defend you. And Jephthah goes to God and he makes a deal. In one of the strangest, most difficult stories we have in Scripture, he makes a deal with God. He says, if you help me defeat this enemy, I will give you in a sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my tent when I get home. And you know what's coming, don't you? You know what's coming. He defeats them, he is successful, God gives him the victory, and the first thing to come out of his tent is his daughter. His daughter. And we don't know what happens. The rest of the story is kind of left untold. She goes out to the desert with her friends to mourn her virginity, not her life, her virginity. And then the story kind of ends with the implication that she's been sacrificed, although that part's not told. And when we have all but given up hope that we might have the story of a real hero, The people comply by falling back into their evil ways and needing once again to be rescued from the mess they have made for themselves. And we get Samson, the pure. Samson, who is so pure that his mother did not even eat grapes when she was pregnant with him. He is so pure that he has never cut his hair. Samson, who did defeat a lion as a kid. Samson, who beat up a group of 1,000 warriors with the jawbone of a donkey. Now that's a hero. And early on, we get a little taste of his tragic flaw. We get this story about him and his first wife, that he kind of tells her this secret of the answer to a riddle he has posed to his enemies. And of course, she tells everyone, and they find out the answer. So we get a little foreshadowing. And sure enough, Samson defeats the Philistines, and things look really bright for the Israelites. Finally, a hero with some muscle. A real, legitimate, pure, golden hero. Until Delilah. Delilah and the worst haircut ever. And Samson ends up weak and blind and in captivity. And when he dies, he goes out in spectacular glory, calling on the last of his strength to destroy the entire leadership of the Philistines along with himself by pulling the pagan temple down around all of their heads. Ehud the left-handed, Deborah the prophet, Jael the housewife, Gideon the weak, Jephthah the son of a prostitute, Samson the pure. And what is the constant in all of those stories? Who is it that is actually rescuing the people in all of these stories over and over and over again? Who is the hero? It's God. God's the hero of these stories. And the stories don't appear to be stories to aggrandize God so much as they are acknowledging that the rescuing would not have happened except for the hand of God. Until you get to the story of Samson, you might think that the Israelites just can't produce a real hero. All their leaders have something seriously wrong with them. But Samson, he's perfect. He is everything a hero should be. So much so that he believes his own press. He's never experienced defeat, and so he is careless. And he lets his guard down. And he dies because he trusted the wrong person. We are in the wandering season. And this story of the people of Israel in the time of the judges is not so much wandering as it is an infuriating circle. Follow God, get on a good path, get enticed to turn away from God because, hey, there's lots of gods to choose from, and how will you know unless you try? And that does not go well. Get in trouble, turn back to God, and ask for rescue. Receive the rescue, start over. And it is easy for us to judge these people of Israel. It's a good thing we don't turn away from God, right? We never do that. We come to church every Sunday. We don't turn away from God. We never worshipped another God, which we might believe, except for Jesus, who ruins everything. Jesus, who says, wherever it is that you put your treasure, that's where your heart is. Who do we trust? Who do we really trust so that we can sleep at night? Do we trust the locks on our doors? Do we trust the police or our wealth to keep us safe? Do we trust our retirement accounts to keep us from ending up on the street, our government? Do we count on our own heroism, our own strength, our own character to always, always, always keep us safe? Or is it possible that God is at work in the world? I'll tell you, I know it might feel like a stretch, but hear me out. Last January, I took a tour of this building. I felt the weariness of the people of this church who had been holding the whole system up for years, who felt abandoned and who were pedaling as fast as they knew how and felt like they were getting nowhere. And then we walked into this room. and I was given a vision. I saw people here. I saw retired people with someplace to go, and people to gather with, sitting around playing cards, or talking, or having book studies, or discussing philosophy. I saw mothers and fathers gathered around with each other and commiserating over the tasks of parenthood. I saw teenagers and young adults playing games, studying, laughing, talking. I saw it all. And then you called me to be here. You called a band nerd. You called a person with ADHD and several other real weirdnesses. You called a female. You called an untested pastor. You trusted that I could replicate the 2 good sermons available online 48 times a year. A fact that I could not even guarantee for you. And I don't want to make this about me. I want to point out that we are all the wrong people. Even if we have nailed the criterion that our culture lays out, getting all the good grades, sticking the dismounts, scoring the goals, there is a Delilah for us. And we will go off the rails. And God, to rescue us from danger, will send help. In the form of a left-handed, illegitimate, wrong-gender, red-headed stepchild, well, like Jesus. This room will not rescue us. It is just a room. But if we open our eyes to the vision of God for us and for our community, God will be at work, doing things that we cannot possibly imagine and that we cannot achieve for ourselves. And our days will indeed be blessed. Amen.